I've developed what I call my 6 acronym speech, which I think describes most of the issues. The 6 acronyms are SEIU, BLT, CCC, GHG, HSR, and ABAG. Business license tax and SEIU, I think, go hand in hand. It's been the strategy of the council, which I agree with and maybe help create. That is that for our $10 million structural budget gap that we're looking for a way to sort of share the pain. That is that 1/3 of the gap would be covered by increased revenues, meaning the business license tax. 1/3 would come from reduction in number of employees, which we did this year. And that translates, I think, to reduced services to the community sooner or later. And the other 1/3 from a reduction in total compensation to our employees. That gets us to the SEIU and the negotiations that we're talking about right now, or involved in right now. So those are what budgetary concerns are at the top of my list of things that we have to accomplish in the next year, 2, 3, 4 years. And one of the reasons why I'm running for re-election. California Constitutional Convention is there to talk about how the state keeps taking away money from local jurisdictions, making it harder for us to finance our programs. And that really has got to change. And the council's role, of course, is limited, but I think we can certainly encourage our citizens to participate in these twin, or at least 2 different efforts to change our Constitution so that we can have a state that's properly financed and not have to always worry and put in a lot of effort to make sure that the state doesn't take any more money away from us. Quality of life issues, and that's ABAG and greenhouse gases, which is just a shorthand for saying we got to do more on environmental matters. I think we've done a good job on environmental matters. Our green building ordinance, which I'll take some credit for, Jay. We were one of the first cities in the state and the country to, not the first, but one of the first to adopt a mandatory green building ordinance. And it's been being used as a model for other cities in California. ABAG is shorthand for the housing allocation that we're supposed to zone for 2,700 housing units to be, that could theoretically be built over the next 7 years in various income categories. I've been critical of the ABAG process, which is really a Sacramento process. ABAG, I think it's too much criticism. To the extent they reduced Palo Alto's allocation, they'd have to increase the allocation of one of the other 98 cities in the Bay Area. But to me, it's a sort of a 20th century solution to a 21st century problem. The assumption underlying all those allocations is that people will, emphasize will, live as close to their jobs as possible. And lots of research now shows that isn't necessarily the case. Particularly in our community, people frequently move here to have their kids in the Palo Alto School District. And there are a lot of people who start out working here and living here, and people in Silicon Valley they move a lot, so that they may work for HP in Palo Alto for a few years, but then they take a better job at Intel in Santa Clara, but they don't move their residences to Santa Clara, even though they could certainly afford to do so. The other quality of life issue, high-speed rail. I'm part of the council's subcommittee on high-speed rail. The more I've gotten into it, the more complex this becomes. My position on high-speed rail, which is right now the official position of the city, is we're open to anything but an above-grade high-speed rail with walls that would be 20 to 40 feet high, running from the Mountain View border to the Menlo Park border. But we're open to anything else.
The people in the community that think the council was asleep when this issue came before it prior to the November ballot. What's your response?
We were all misled, misinformed. Not the chief backers of high-speed rail were not transparent in what they presented. I think to some degree they may not have even known what they had in their proposal.
So do you fault the city staff for having?
No, I can fault a lot of people. I think that our regional agencies did not give us a full measure of information.
Other cities were much more on top of this than
Two.
Palo Alto.
Two. Menlo Park now.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
So that would suggest the information was out there to be found.
No, they didn't have full information either. All I knew was they didn't want it running through their backyard.
I want to shift gears to the city's labor situation.
Good.
You were part of the council that provided some increased benefits that in part have contributed to this situation. I wonder if what your sort of philosophical approach is, other than saying we need them to absorb a third of our budget problem. How do you want them to do that, and what sacrifices are appropriate for current city employees versus a potential two-tier system where new employees receive benefits that are inferior to the existing employees?
Well, I mean, the last SEIQ contract, which I did indeed vote for, called for about a 4% increase per year over the 3 years that expired June 30th. And I think that was in keeping with where the economy was back in '06. But we got some concessions from the union in exchange for that. Mm-hmm. Their benefits were reduced. Particularly healthcare, took them down from the highest cost plan to the second highest. Sorry. So didn't increase benefits.
How does one, if you're a leading community wanting to hire the best possible workers, and you've got a utility department on top of it, what is the path forward to reforming both
Well, I think that my attitude for the city of Palo Alto is we have to do what we can at our level. If we have trouble recruiting, then that's fine. We'll have to respond in a market oriented way, which is that if you can't find somebody at X dollars, then you've got to pay X plus something else. But that's not where we are right now. And indeed, right now, in terms of market, we're in a place where we can hire people at the market isn't where the compensation is. It's lower. But the union doesn't want to hear that. Their attitude is, well, you can either raid your reserves or this is only a temporary blip in Palo. They will argue this if you talk to them, that this is just a temporary blip. Palo Alto is really strong. Don't worry about it. Well, I choose to worry about it.
Why should we endorse you, Larry?
The jackpot question. Most of the time I enjoy doing it. Not always. But that's true of any job that I've ever had. I like the challenge of it. I think that I think I'm very effective at it.
All the applause that you get.
Right. Every so often I get an email saying thank you. That's outweighed by 5 or 10 times on the other way. No, I think I'm effective at it. I really am intellectually engaged. I think we have a fascinating city, the place I love. I've only lived here 42 years now. And if you look at the council in particular this year, I'm the only incumbent running. The 4 holdovers have 2 years of experience each. So I have 13 years of experience, so I have more experience than the rest of the council put together, no matter who's elected. So I think I maybe can argue that I'm needed more than ever, and also I think I've done a very good job the last 4 years.